Welcome to the Queer Confidence Podcast, the podcast to help you become your most confident queer self. I'm your host, he, she, they, Coach Alex Ray, and I haven't always been this confident. In fact, I used to be super insecure. And through this show, I want to share with you what's worked for me, my clients, and my guests so that you can become more confident. Hello, my unicorns. Welcome back. Today, I'm joined by another special guest for you. I have Drummond Culture. He is a life coach and the host of Positive Talks on IGTV. He also is kind of an accidental influencer, which he's going to tell you about today. And we are going to talk with you about faith, Christianity, and being gay. And that is something that really stuck out to me about Drummond when I met him through Clubhouse several months ago, is that both of us do have faith, and that's not something that's really common in our community. So you'll get to hear about mine, which I've never really talked about on the podcast, and you're going to get to hear all about his and our journeys to get there. So without any further introduction, hello, Drummond. Welcome.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. Beautiful sunny day here in Virginia.
Love it. It's sunny here too, and it's kind of cool, which is nice because our AC is broken right now, and I finally am not dripping in sweat, so it's great. So where should we dive in? I want to ask you first, explain a little bit to everyone about being an accidental influencer.
Yeah, so for me personally, I grew up a very, very shy kid. So the thought of being an influencer would have never crossed my mind. Being anything in the public eye would have never crossed my mind as a possible career choice for myself. So back in my freshman year of college, came out of the closet. I was actually dragged out by my stepsister. She decided that the world needed to know. So I'm a little bit
needed to experience your fabulousness.
Yeah, she thought that my dad needed to know this important information. So I'm thankful to her, because I don't know if I would have come out, because I do, like, my religion was very important to me. And I was in a very rural part of Virginia. So that was something I knew was not accepted by the Christian community. So honestly, I think that it was a blessing in disguise. But I was definitely drug out of the closet by my sister. And when it came to answering questions, I had not mentally prepared myself for any type of conversations around my sexual orientation. I was still trying to figure it out. So I decided, instead of answering the same darn questions 1,000 times for everyone that wanted to know, I decided I was going to just make a video and post it on my Facebook. So it should just answer all those questions and just be like, no, it's not that I just haven't met the wrong or right girl yet. No, it's not. It's not a phase in my life. This is something that I've known forever. And I made this video, and it was an emotional video for me, just because putting it into words and actually saying it out loud was something that I hadn't really done a lot of. And so it became a 15-minute long video. At that time, Facebook only allowed 2-minute videos on your wall. So someone had suggested,
back in the day.
Back when it first started. But someone had suggested to me that I upload the video to YouTube and then share the link on my Facebook page. At the time, YouTube, back in 2008, was just kind of a platform for like cute cat videos. It wasn't really a space like it is where there's content creators now. And
Charlie bit my finger too, right? The most important.
I didn't know that it was like a huge public platform for sharing, and I didn't know that there was a setting to make it private. So I posted the coming out video, literally just called it my coming out video, and shared the link on my Facebook and never looked back at YouTube. It wasn't until a couple years later that someone reached out to me and they're like, "So, how do you deal with all the hate comments that you have under your video?" I like scrolled to my video link on Facebook and I'm like, everyone was really accepting. I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, no, like on YouTube. So at that time, I went back to YouTube. I didn't have the login to get back in because I never used it. I only created an account on YouTube to load that one video. And it had like over 1 million views. The comments were just like crazy.
Oh
There was
my
a lot of
God.
hate, which I mean, 2008, 2009, 2010, that was still not a time where people were openly discussing being gay on the internet. And I mean, amongst all the hate, which was hard to read because at that time I was still learning to accept myself, which we'll get a little bit further into in this discussion because my religion also played a huge role in that process of learning to love and accept myself.
Mhm.
But within those comments were still people being touched and moved by me being so vulnerable on the internet, which was an accident. But it was kind of nice to see how being that vulnerable, which was meant for just my friends and family, really helped other people come to really ask themselves questions about what part of them like was gay, how can they accept themselves. I
Mm.
talked, I covered a lot in that video. And for me, it was just a very interesting thing. And I didn't post much on that channel. I did get my logins back. My next video wasn't until after a 5 year relationship with a boy ended. And I did a video where it was the day after this breakup. And I just shared all my emotions that I was feeling at that moment with the intention of a year later posting another video to show where I was and how far I'd gone in a
Yeah.
year. So 3 videos on that channel really just kind of blew it up. Things got crazy. Stalkers started finding me. I deleted that whole channel and left the internet for about 3 years and came back and really got engaged on social platforms. And when I go to different events like VidCon or Playlist or any of the panels that I do around LGBT stuff that I do when I travel, people still know me from my first channel that was a complete accident. But I definitely learned a lot from that, and that's kind of where the accidental influencer comes into my bio.
I love it. Yeah, what a wild journey and a testament to how vulnerability is really what people crave. So much of what we do online is curated and trying to impress and just put forth our best effort. That is not what anyone really cares about, and it's not what actually creates confidence. The more that we are putting on a mask and faking it, the more we actually convince ourselves that the true authentic us is not worth sharing. So I'm excited today that we get to be vulnerable and authentic about our faith, which is not something that the community talks about much. So um tell us a little bit about your positive talks briefly. We'll talk about it at the end and also give a link in the show notes to it. But why'd you decide to start that?
Well, as we all know, 2020 was quite the year to put down in the books. And I'm sure everyone out there can attest to 2020 didn't turn out the way we had expected it to. 2020 was supposed to be a huge year of travel for me and collaboration for my YouTube channel. And I was super excited because I had just gone to VidCon the year before. And I'd met tons of content creators that I was planning on traveling and visiting and doing fun collabs with. And of course, that was canceled. Travel was canceled for that year. And I was let down. I was definitely not excited about it because I had so many plans. And the internet, of course, with the movements, with an election, with a pandemic, with forest fires popping up everywhere, there was just endless negative things going on that was just draining everyone of any type of good energy. And
Mhm.
August really was probably one of my worst months of my life. Like I was trying to give the world so much of myself, and I wasn't able to pull in any positive energy because I was just like being beaten down by so many different things. And I'm the type of person, I care about everything. So seeing so much hatred, seeing so much sadness and hurt and pain, I was absorbing that. And it really wasn't helping me move forward in a positive way. And I broke down in August and just shared with all my friends on my private Facebook. I was just like, guys, I'm not in a good place mentally. Like it's bad. Like it's a scary bad place right now. And all my friends came together for my birthday, despite the fact that we were living through a pandemic. And that just like sparked, it was like I had been pouring out to everyone in the world for so long. And on my birthday, they came back and poured into me,
Mm.
hearing them talk about things that I had done for them and really why they are still my friends today. It like I cried a lot that day just hearing all of them talk, and like these people came from all walks of my life, not specific time. Went all the way back to like my high school days, all the jobs I'd done over the years, and everyone just connected perfectly. I had like collected the perfect group of friends. And after my birthday, I was like, what do I want to see in the world? I was like, I want to see positivity. I want to go online and actually be filled with like happiness when I'm done. So instead of wanting other people to do it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that step. So I reached out to my friend Jenner and I was just like, hey, would you be interested in going live with me on Instagram and calling it a positive talk where we just for an hour talk about anything and everything that just like inspires us and is positive? And thankfully, I had a lot of friends that wanted that same message to be put out there and trusted me enough to go live. And it just kind of became a series. The original goal was to do it up until election day because I knew everyone in our community was really
Mhm.
struggling and stressing and almost feeling like there was no luck or we were going to fail. And I was just like, we can't do that. We can't give up until like it's already said that this is our next president. And afterwards, like those lives just brought so much life to me, to the people that did them with me, to the audience that was watching during the live or after I posted it after the live. And I was just like, you know what? I want to keep these going. Like, I didn't care about how much work I had to put in to get people to do them, figure out what topics we were talking about, what schedule worked for everyone. Because at the end of the day, no matter how bad the day was, those positive talks literally just filled me back up to the brim. And I was just like, you know what? I've got this. These are perfect. These are amazing. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep pushing through. I'll be hitting my 100th episode at the end of this month. So I'm super excited.
Oh my goodness, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And the talks that you've done on there have been just amazing, and you've had some really neat guests and really vulnerable, deep conversations. So again, we'll put that in the show notes so everyone can find that. But let's talk about Christianity and being a homosexual. So what was your experience like growing up in the church and a Christian family?
So there was definitely a lot of crying in the shower and praying to God to wash my sinful thoughts away. That was
Hmm.
like because from a very
Can
young
relate.
age, I knew that the Christian church was not accepting of who I was. I wouldn't say that I understood fully what LGBT was, because when I was young, there was not much internet to kind of do that type of research and understand. So my journey was very much alone
Mhm.
and just trying to figure it out myself in my head, but with that constant reminder that everyone around me thought it was disgusting, thought it was a sin, believed I was going to hell. So it was definitely, I think that that contributed a lot to being very shy, because I felt like if I did anything too loud, people might see the real me that I was hiding from the world. So I was very shy, and I was nice and kind to everyone because honestly, I felt like I had to go above and beyond to show people that I was a good person, because I in the back of my head, I always felt like eventually someone was going to find out. So I
Mhm.
felt like if I just did all the good, anything to make people like me, that if my secret ever got out, people could see past it and see that I did lots of good things as well. But it was definitely a struggle. And I think when it came to being thrown out of the closet, I did kind of leave my religious beliefs and my connection to the church behind for a little bit, to kind of learn to love me instead of the me that the world told me I was supposed to be. And that was a whole journey, but I don't think I ever lost my relationship with God. I cut myself off from the church, but my relationship with God was always strong ever since I was little. Like I've gone through some really hard things, and I would always ask God to get me through those types of things. And there's just been so many things that have happened in my life when I ask God to help me get through something, and it's just like it was almost like miracles were placed into my life to help me some of the impossible things.
Yeah, I can relate very closely with a lot of that. I remember crying myself to sleep frequently, and I didn't really know anybody in the community either, other than one lesbian that had come to our church for a little bit. And all I knew was that all the adults like warned me about her. Don't let her try to convert you and poison your mind. And we did this little or not family, like church-wide retreat thing. And she was one of the only, I'm guessing she must have been in high school or college. But she was one of the only adults, to my 7 or 8 year old self that would actually like cared and wanted to be around me or was interested in hanging out with me. And so I was like, this is the most awesome person ever. And then unfortunately, a few months later, she got excommunicated at the end of church service. It was like an announcement they just threw in there at the end of the service. And all I could think as a kid was like, she's getting kicked out of the club, out into the scary world, and oh my gosh, is she, and she's going to hell now. And so I was terrified, and I did, that was before I probably would have been 6 maybe when that happened. So it was before I really knew that I was gay, and I didn't know anyone else. And then I knew for sure by the time I was 10, I was like, get rid of this, God. And I used to cry myself to sleep and pray. Um, I get it, God. We all have to have something, some kind of burden. This is like 10-year-old Alex, actually, all through my teens too. Like, so here's the deal. How about I wake up and I'm not attracted to men anymore? I could be an alcoholic, or I could be really violent. Like maybe I could whatever people have that like makes them want to steal or be a murderer. I was like, I could go turn myself in for that. I could be locked up in jail. That would work, right? I just don't want to be gay and go to hell.
Yeah. It's crazy where our minds take us when because a child's mind doesn't interpret the messages the same as an adult would. So as a gay child, like you hear hell and you hear people talking about the LGBTQIA plus community, and it's definitely not the message that makes you go, oh, God made me who I am supposed to be, and he knows what he's doing. And for the gay community, I think that the church is definitely, I will say most churches, because there are a lot of amazing churches out there now that are very accepting. Um, and then there are some churches out there that think they are very accepting, but they still have very toxic messages for the LGBT, because when you compare your love for another person and they're comparing you to a murderer or people who rape children, that's still setting a very, very negative mindset around the fact that we just want to love another human being. And sometimes that's a really hard conversation to have with someone, because I think the reason I find Christianity and other religions so dangerous to the LGBT community is because a lot of Christian people think that what they're doing is helping, and they think that they're doing God's work, and they think they're doing this because they love you. And when they're doing something so damaging to someone's like self-worth, and they think they're doing it out of love, and they think God's going to congratulate them when they get to the heaven gates for what they've done, like it's scary. Because when I look at the gay community and all the horrible things that happen in our community because of the beliefs that the Christian community places onto us as young kids, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you think you're doing so much good in the world, and you're literally pushing gay kids off the cliff, whether it's suicide or completely losing all self-love for themselves. It's just such a scary place. And that's why I've really just held on tight to my religious like background, and I've held on tight to the LGBT community, because I need the Christians to see how dangerous their words are, and I need the LGBT community to see that they are loved, and who they are is exactly who they're supposed to be, and they should never hate themselves for that.
Mm, yeah, I 100% agree. So let's talk about how our faith has evolved a little bit, huh?
Sure, go. Let's dive right
Let's
in.
open that can of worms. How has, you mentioned that even as a young kid, you had a real spiritual connection. And I was talking with my mom recently about how my beliefs have changed, and she was reminding me of the same thing. She's like, I knew, Alex, that something was different about you since you were, like 4 or 5. You had a connection to God. And I'll share about mine in a moment, but I really want to hear about how have your views about God, so, like heaven, hell, anything, how's that changed?
I would say as a kid, like I just, because living in a very rural area, you just assume everyone thinks the same way that
Yes.
the people that you're surrounded by think. And I've lived in a lot of different places. Like I've lived in over 9 states now, so including Virginia, and going around and traveling and meeting people from all walks of life and connecting with people on social media, I realized that I get to choose like what I believe is truth. And we all have our own truth. And for me, I have always believed that God is going to put me where I'm supposed to be, no matter what. Like everything I experience, God wanted me to experience it. every hardship I'm meant to go through because it's training me to be exactly who God put me on this earth to be. So my relationship really ties in with God. I don't really tie in super tight into the church community in like the structural buildings of churches, just because for me personally, my main focus is on God's love for humanity, God's love for each and every child he has put on this earth. And for me, and this is something that a lot of like people that consider themselves Christian, I think struggle with connecting me on this level, is because for me personally, I don't put my full faith in the Bible, mainly because I believe that the Bible was written by man, not God himself. And as we all know, men are very flawed. Uh,
Mhm.
so I personally believe that within the Bible, there might be the message of God built in. But I also believe that men can tie in their corrupt thoughts into the Bible. And for me personally, like, I don't think that God would have put millions of people on this earth for us to divide ourselves and for us to attack and hate each other. I believe that we were all meant to play the roles that we play. And so for me, I just believe in unity. I believe in differences are important and needed for us to survive as a human race here on earth. I believe that, I mean, God knows that there will be an end eventually. No one on this planet will ever know that ending. And honestly, for me, just kind of stepping away from the church, and I do this with myself all the time, just reevaluating and asking myself why I believe what I believe, because that that was a big part for me. I didn't I there were so many things I just accepted as facts and accepted because that's what someone at the church told me. And I'm a full believer now that even the people at the church, like the youth pastors, the pastors up front, the congregation, they all put their own beliefs and spins into the message of God. And therefore, we corrupt it. And even I can be corrupting the message. I don't believe that I'm perfect. I don't believe that I will ever know because I don't have that direct line with God. But I do know that every time I've ever prayed and ask God to help me see why I needed to go through this step. And dear God, I can't do this anymore. Get me out. He's always provided an answer and he's always provided that open door that I needed to walk through. So for me, I personally feel like if God really didn't want me to be doing what I'm doing, if God didn't want me to be spreading the messages I spread, he would find a way to silence my voice in that aspect. So I really do believe that my message of positivity, my message of love and unity is what God wants me to be doing. And I don't believe that that's something that Satan would be putting in someone is, yeah, let's bring the world together. Let's make people love each other. Let's like end hate. Like I feel like that's what Satan wants us to see. So it's just been a journey, and honestly, like before every positive talk, before I do anything, before I have uncomfortable conversations on Clubhouse to try to bring people together, I ask God to put the right words in me to share so that I don't make someone upset, I don't hurt someone, I don't accidentally move a movement back when I'm trying to help move it forward. So for me, it's kind of a relationship that I have with God himself and not so much the community as whole. But I'm constantly impressed with the people that God puts in my life. And I run into other Christian people in our community because our stories are all different. And it's always so fascinating to me to hear those stories and how we've gotten to the day where we got to meet and share our messages with each other.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really think that, just by us sharing these things today, we're really going to help some people heal. And I know it's not even comfortable to share a lot of these things because there is so much stigma within the gay community. And then conversely, there's also a lot of stigma, as we all know, in the Christian community um, against queer people. So thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. I'll share a little bit about what's changed in my faith and what has happened for me. Like I said, when I was a kid, I had this really strong connection. I wanted to, as a kid, I think I might have been 8 years old or something when I went to my parents and I was like, I want to become a Christian. Help me pray the prayer, right? Which is a little silly, now as an adult, like looking back on the church, like, why do we think there's like this specific prayer we need to pray? But that's what I grew up believing. And um, so I joined our church as a member around, I don't know, I think I was definitely younger than 12 years old. And I'd always had a connection, I felt like, to God and a spiritual side. And a lot of what I was taught, I grew up in a very conservative, very legalistic Presbyterian church. Um, and so a lot of what they taught was theological, like extra biblical kind of man's interpretation. And a lot of that, I remember struggling a lot with beliefs around like gender roles, for example, in the church, and trying to understand, wait, why can't women become pastors and men are supposed to have this kind of ruling over women and blah, blah, blah. And I 100% agree with you about what the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is really allegorical, not, and I don't even know if you use that word, but like less literal, and that the entire Bible has been interpreted by humans, men, really, and then also reinterpreted as different translations have come out, as different parts of the church have split and splintered, and then with different theologies. It is like 100 feet deep before you actually get to the actual core, maybe, teachings of the Bible. And one of the things that I really appreciated about 2020 was not going to church. It's been over a year since I've been to church, and I had been going like semi-consistently for all of 2019 and years leading up to it. I mean, it was like a regular practice. There was a small time for a few months when I left the church completely for several months because I was so angry at God after coming out, and I was like, "You're an asshole. I wanted to be straight. It didn't work. I'm done." I got one of my tattoos that's an anchor and a cross, and it was something I got when I came back to church as a reminder that God's always an anchor for me. And that still lies true, although my beliefs about God have changed so dramatically over the last year, again, after not going to church for over a year now. One of the things, like, I don't like gendering God anymore. And so when I talk about God, I usually will use the pronoun they, because I think that calling God he or a man in a lot of ways is just an old cultural interpretation. If God created humans and all the animals, how could God possibly be a dude and not like have all of the gender expressions, the whole spectrum? And then I also believe that we, being created in God's image. I do believe that part of the Bible, that we're created in God's image, meaning each of us is also a creator. Each of us is also co-creating reality, and each of us in that way is kind of godlike. We are created in their image, and we also all have the full spectrum of masculine, feminine energy within us. And then culture trains us to, like, if you have a dick, be like only paying attention to masculine energy, do. If you have a vagina, only go with the feminine energy of receive, think, feel. And then if you are, if you don't fit into one of those, right? If you don't fit into the binary, then we don't know what to do with you. And that's a huge problem when we have intersex people in our community. Like, they know best that they have trouble finding, okay, wait a minute, I don't even fit in with this part of society with like man versus woman. Like, what am I supposed to do? I pick a side, whatever. And that's a whole nother can of worms that I am not an expert to talk on. That's getting off topic. So another belief that changed for me over the last year was the concept of hell. I don't believe in hell anymore, and this is my reasoning behind it. I don't believe that a loving creator would also want to eternally punish. Like, I can't imagine if I had my own kid and they did something wrong, even like the most awful wrong thing, I would not want them to eternally suffer for that thing. And so, whether that's biblical or not, that's where I've landed. And I also, the last thing I wanted to share, like, you still use the label Christian, right? And many others in our community do too. I don't anymore. And I don't use it because of what that label represents to me is a certain theological boundaries that and views of the Bible that I feel fit into that. And so that word for me does not fit my new worldview, my new spiritual view. So I've chosen to not use that anymore. I still believe that there is a creator, and I still believe that the Bible is helpful in many ways, but like you pointed out, it's also hurtful in many ways too. And so I don't use that term anymore. But
Yeah. So an interesting thing. So for me personally, I labels for me, I used to feel like labels were so controlling and they were a box that if you labeled yourself with that label, that meant that you had to check off a certain amount or a percent of the check boxes that fall under that label to be able to identify as that label. And then I started realizing that we were really starting to allow labels to set a path for us. And for me personally, I've learned that there are words that describe us, and we get to choose those words. And also, we don't have to allow the stereotypes that come with labels define who we're supposed to be just because we chose a label. And that's something that I've discovered more as I really started educating myself and leaning into the LGBT community, because I mean, our community has a lot of different labels. And I think that even within our community, labels get very confusing for people because they believe they have to check certain things. Like, even within the gay community, because I would consider myself a spiritual person, I felt like that was a mark against my LGBT status. I when I people talked about gay people, they're like, oh, they love shopping, they wear makeup, they do this, they know fashion. I was just like, well, that's not really me. And I started to feel like I didn't fit in with the LGBT community because I wasn't checking the boxes. And of course, because I was part of the LGBT community, the big check box over there under Christian was not being checked because I was sinning according to the Christian beliefs. And then I realized that I don't have to let labels define me as a person. I can give myself a label without that defining me. The stereotypes don't have to match anything that I do as a person. Like when you gender yourself, male or female, what does that mean? I
Hmm.
personally believe that most of the things people consider like masculine, I don't believe most masculine guys check all those boxes. They're they will allow themselves to stress themselves out and hate themselves because they haven't checked those boxes. Or you could just be like, okay, the thing that I most identify with is, but don't allow that checklist to even exist because honestly, like that's just going to stop you from being who you're supposed to be. And for me, the Christian label feels the most right because of certain things I put underneath that label for myself. Uh,
Hmm.
I there was like a period of time when I stepped away from the church where I put on my Facebook bio that my religion was love, because honestly, when I think of God, that's the word that comes to mind is love. So very similar to you, like I don't believe God sets you free to make mistakes to punish you like eternally for it. I do believe that there is a Satan or devil that is out there putting fear in people's hearts and putting all those bad things in the world to move people away from their true calling, which is what God wants us to do. So I think that labels might be something that Satan would put into the world because those labels really do steer people away from being their most authentic true self. And once I started stepping away from when I put a label on myself and then letting society give me the checklist and I decided what my checklist was, it was like an energy in me that I've never felt before. It was like this freeing energy that I removed all societal walls that have been put in my life for what I'm supposed to be. And I'm starting to navigate through the world by what feels right. Like, I don't care about those labels. Like, for me personally, like, I have looked into just like the they, them pronouns just to remove the fact that I don't think there needs to be this is masculine, this is feminine. I think that that just adds more walls and locked doors for people that are trying to understand themselves. I think that just the more I took time to be like, who am I? Does this feel right? Why doesn't it feel right? Oh, society told me I'm supposed to do this. And as soon as I stopped listening to what other people were telling me what I was allowed to be, I was just like, you know what? It almost made my relationship with God, which I believe is like all around us, everything He's ever created is around us. I was able to connect to all of that, and I
Mm.
do feel like I'm moving in a direction. And when they tell you to put your trust in God, like put your life in His hands, I think that that's what it means is to stop allowing labels, stop allowing the world to tell you what you are supposed to do, because those are humans. Those are flawed things directing you in life. Like God is like pure energy for me. And when I'm being stubborn and not listening to God, and I continue to do it, He does things like gets me let go from my job that I shouldn't be doing. And he's like, that's not what I wanted you to do. And I was like, but it's safe and it's nice. But like, he definitely puts things in your life where it's just like, nope, you're
Hmm.
straying off the path that I've set for you. And I'm starting to accept that more and believe in it and really just look inward, because I think that that's where my closest connection with God is, because He made me. So He gave me everything I need here because He made me and God doesn't make mistakes. So I'm just like, okay, I've got this. Like, God put every tool that I need in here, and He's putting everything around me to sharpen the tools that I'm going to need in life. So it's just a very interesting place to be when you have truly accepted, okay, God, I'm putting it in your hands. I trust you. And it's just a nice place to be compared to before, where I was doubting and allowing society to put doubts in my head because I was doing the things society told me to do. It just didn't feel right. And it made me feel like I wasn't good enough. I was on, like, I was doing everything I could and things still weren't turning out right. And then I realized that it was because I was allowing a flawed system made by humans guide me through a life that God had created. And I needed to realize that he didn't make mistakes.
Preach. Yes, yes, yes. I freaking love it. Mm. So, what's next for you this year?
Taking the big leap of really, it's crazy because like life has always made me the person who helps other people on their journey, whether it's in school, whether it's uh, in some type of theater thing, whether it's a job, whether it's my siblings, whether it's my mom, my grandmother. Like I've constantly been given the tools to coach people and be there for people. And I was just always, I never thought that that was something you could turn it into a career. And I sat
Hmm.
there with my friends one day when I had lost my job before I got this current one. And I was just like, what do I want to do? And we were like, well, what do you love? What brings you joy? What like brings you to life when you do it? And every single thing I looked at college, I looked at high school, I looked at jobs, I looked at relationships. And I was like, I come to life when I know that I'm helping someone find their path. And that's like, that's where I thrive. Like, I love opening people's eyes and removing roadblocks. So I'm going to lean full into coaching and using my content that I have online and my platforms and my audiences that I've collected over the years, uh, maybe accidentally doing it. I definitely didn't create my platforms with the idea of one day I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to help people. Like I started out very shy and very just like nobody loves me. So I I definitely didn't start any of the projects in my life with the idea of becoming a coach later.
Hmm.
But I think God did that. I think that He was putting those in place so that when this time came, I was just like, I had it. I went through the journeys of building my belief in myself, believing in the tools that I had, believing I could actually do it. Uh, all of those journeys brought me to finally believing in myself. So as of July 1st, I am jumping full time entrepreneur, life coach, content creator. And I really just want to go out and help people find their calling because when I found this calling, it was just like everything else just became so much more simple. I was just like,
Hmm.
wow, like this is what I want to do. Like I had so much doubt before because my grandparents, when they paid for my college, they were like, doctor, lawyer, architect. Those are your three choices. So I chose architecture and it never felt right. And I always felt like I was not as good as everyone else. I felt like I was not providing any like wisdom to anyone because and when I was trying to help people, there was still like this thought in the back of my head saying, nah, you're not good enough to be giving advice. You should probably shut up. But when I fell into this place that I'm at now, like I don't have that doubt and I trust myself and I trust that the right things are going to be happening and the right people are going to walk into my life when they're supposed to come into my life. And it's an amazing place to be. And 2020 helped me a lot because it really took me uh, losing my pride and actually telling people, I'm not doing okay, guys. Like, help me out. And realizing that I had spent my life pouring out my love that God gave me to the world. And it did make differences in all those people's lives. And it took my friends all coming to my birthday and hearing them all talk about it, because sometimes I was pouring out and I didn't know I was. Sometimes I
Mm,
was really struggling in life and still pouring out unknowingly, and people seeing me stand up when life knocked me down. I was inspiring people and I didn't even know it. And to
mhm.
hear all of those people talk about me in that way, which I'm really bad at listening to people do that, I was just like, wow, that this is what been I was supposed to be doing this my whole life. And I'm glad I discovered it in my early 30s and not like at 80, because now I've got hopefully many more years ahead of me to like help people on their journeys.
Yeah. And it's so clear talking to you that, like, this is where you're meant to be. This is what you love doing. This is what lights you up. And this is clearly your next mission. Who knows what the one will be after this, right? Like, this could
Exactly.
be the only other one. There could be more. Who knows? Ah, I love it. Is there any, like, final word of wisdom that you want to impart, whatever that word is, that you want to give to to our listeners today?
I would say we all have to get better at trusting ourselves, because I honestly can tell you that throughout my life, I've always wanted to do what I'm doing right now, but I never trusted that feeling that was there from being a child up until this point. I never trusted that. And
Mm,
I think that we're all given that. We are all given a purpose. And I think that we just have to learn how to trust that and really shut out everyone else's opinions, whether it's our parents, whether it's the church, whether it's our communities, um, siblings, coworkers, all of those things. Stop asking the world if it's okay to be what you feel is exactly your calling. And if you don't know exactly how that calling is calling to you, like you don't know a specific career of how you're going to make money,
mhm.
doing what you feel is right, just really lean into it. Like I have a really caring heart and I have patience for everyone in this world. And I was like, well, a caring heart and patience isn't going to make me any money. Like I'm going to have to figure out how to use that. Uh, and I think that a lot of times we also think that everyone around us thinks the same way that we do, or we're in a community and we think the whole world thinks that way. It's not true. The way that you think, the way that you perceive the world is special. Lean into it, love that, and then put it out there, because your vibe attracts your tribe, and your tribe might not be in your small town that you grew up in. It might not be in the city that you are in. But if you put it out there, and now we have so many beautiful tools to do that, use them, tell people, like, just be honest with yourself and put that out into the world, and all the right people will hear it. That energy will put all the right people in your life. And I'm a true believer in everything that you go through, God put there for you to learn something from. So instead of saying, why me, ask yourself, what am I learning here? What message is this teaching me that I'm going to use later? And we may never know, but when that time comes, you go, oh, that's why I had to deal with that. That's why I was like destroyed, smashed, and kicked in the face at that point in my life. I was meant to grow from that so I could be here and have that wisdom to get this person or this community or these people through something very similar, and just trust all of that. Everything's really supposed to get you to where you're supposed to be. And don't give up, no matter how many people tell you that who you are is not enough. That's not true. Don't give up. Like, life is worth living. And I mean, there are too many beautiful people in this world. Don't let social media, the media, put too much of a focus on hatred and all this bad stuff. Like, look around you. Like, see the mom with the child in a grocery store. See the old woman struggling to get something and someone grabbing it for her and helping. Like, our communities are full of good people. Social media and the entertainment industry try to focus on what they think is going to grab views. And unfortunately, the algorithms of the internet, of the world, are telling them that hatred is what we want to see. But it's all around us. There's beautiful things happening. Like, focus on that and find hope in that, because I am always impressed, even though I live in a rural area where everyone looked like they were wearing Trump shirts. There is a lot of love, and you just have to look at it and look past some of the hate you see in the world, because sometimes hate is other people's fear projecting itself as a mask of hate to prevent you from helping them. And I think that once you take that time to love yourself, you start to see past other people's masks, and you can change the world with whatever superpower God gave you when you came into this earth.
I love it. Drummond, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been a joy talking about this with you. I've been wanting to do an episode for a while just talking about faith, and I'm so excited that we got to do it together. This was just awesome. When I met you and saw that you were like out and everything about your faith, I thought, okay, this will go somewhere. So here we are. So last thing, we're gonna link everything in the show notes for everyone. So go down there to like find it easily. But where can our listeners find you?
I am all over the internet. First and foremost, YouTube is like where my heart lies for sure. I'll definitely be putting so much effort into that now that I've switched to content creator. But Instagram, not so much on Twitter, but everything is Drummond Culture. I have saved that name on platforms I'm not even on yet, just because I believe that maybe one day I'll find a use for it. And I want my Drummond culture to be mine. I don't want to have to pay someone to get it, but I've got it on TikTok. I'm thinking about doing some stuff there. I've been holding off for so long, not jumping onto that platform, but Drummond culture is where you can find me on all the platforms. Tried to make it as easy as possible, but I absolutely love connecting on all of them. Reach out to me. As I grow, it's getting harder to read everyone's stuff, but I don't delete anything. I do look at everything. And as long as you're not inappropriate and you respect me as a person and don't treat me like I'm just a thing that you get to take control over, realize that I'm a person. Like I always try to respond to people that reach out to me.
Awesome. I love it. All right. And then a few things I just want to link up additionally in the show notes so you can find them. If you are someone who grew up in the Christian community like us, and you are in the LGBTQIA plus community and struggling with some passages in the Bible that mention homosexuality, there's an amazing video that someone sent to me only a few months ago, so this is perfect timing. And it's from a conference where they actually interviewed someone involved in the translation decision process there. It completely helped me and affirmed my beliefs and understandings of the translation. So I'm not going to give you all the details here. Go watch the video. It's really good, and you're going to feel a lot of encouragement on that. So the next one too, if you are not familiar with deconstruction, that's a great word to look up. I'm going to link up one of my favorite Instagram accounts on deconstruction. And basically the summary of that is breaking down the theologies and such that we were taught as kids and understanding what actually you believe. It's an amazing community that started blowing up over the past few years as our generation is really questioning what's man-made and what's actually God. And lastly, I'm also going to link for you an episode that I did a few weeks ago, months ago. I don't remember now. It's the purpose episode. That's going to be a great one for you, especially after this conversation today. It's all about finding your purpose. So again, thank you, Drummond, so much for being on this episode. This was amazing. You all go support him. And hey, he might be your next coach.
That's true. Thank you so much for having me. And it's always amazing to connect with other coaches as well. And this conversation was wonderful. I also have not had a lot of conversations around my faith when it comes to my platforms. And it's definitely something I think the world needs more of. So thank you for having me. And I am definitely going to go check out those links that you just suggested once you post it, because I'm interested in hearing those as well.
I love it. All right, everyone, have an amazing week. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend so they too can become more confident. You can also help more people find the show by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen. And if you want to become a more confident queer with support from yours truly, head to CoachAlexRay.com or use the link down in the show notes. I'm looking forward to working with you.